welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Oh, the Benedict does! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick! Plays it in at the buzzer! That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, welcome into Gamecock Pod Live for November the 5th. I am Keith Alsep, your host, and we have a great show lined up for you today. In just a couple minutes, I will be joined by the great Hale McGranahan from thebigspur.com. Later, we will be joined by Michael Sauls from Go Gamecocks and the State. We'll be talking a lot of Gamecock football. We will discuss the future of Shane Beamer, the fourth offensive coordinator, potentially after 5 years under Shane Beamer. Obviously, he fires Mike Shula on Sunday following another abysmal, lackluster effort on offense. We will dive into all of that and more with our guests. But first, let's talk about my good friend and your good friend at the Nana's Porch, the award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area. Nana's Porch is your go-to for all your catering needs, whether it is a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a birthday, anniversary, or engagement celebration, a rehearsal dinner. Whatever your catering needs, Nana's Porch has got you covered. So go to the homepage, nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. Tell him the Cockfather sent you. You will not be disappointed. You can also support this Gamecock owned and operated business by going to the homepage, even if you don't have a catering event, and order plenty of Nana's Porch award-winning pimento cheese, both the great regular flavor and smoky jalapeno, both selected number one and 1 year number one and number two in the meat and cheese category by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association. It's affordably priced. Checkout is simple, safe, and secure. Nana's Porch, award-winning pimento cheese. You'll love it. I guarantee it. All right, a couple of news notes and headlines brought to you by Nana's Porch. As you see, we got a lot to do as you hear the sheets hitting the desk. Last night, South Carolina men's basketball opened the season with an impressive 91-72 win over North Carolina A&T. The Gamecocks hit 14 3-pointers. They had 5 players in double figures, led by Michi Johnson with 14, Norden Kapich with 13, Elijah Strong with 11, Eli Ellis with 11, Kobe Knox with 12, and then Miles Studi and Jordan Butler added 9 points each. The Gamecocks raced out to a 46-28 halftime lead and never looked back. Gamecocks with 23 assists on 31 made field goals. The 31 made field goals tied for 4th most in the Lamont Paris era, and the Gamecocks are a perfect 8-0 under Paris when they make at least 30 field goals in a game. So the Gamecocks have a successful season opener this year, unlike last year when they dropped the season opener to North Florida. Lamont Paris announcing after the game that sophomore Cam Scott from Lexington and freshman E.J. Walker, Mr. Basketball in Kentucky, will both redshirt this year. Quite frankly, it's kind of surprising to me on Cam Scott, but there are a lot of transfers and older players on this roster, and quite frankly, just a lot of guys ahead of E.J. Walker at that power forward spot. Gamecock women's basketball will head back to Paris next season to open the 2026-2027 season. They will face Maryland on November the 2nd, 2026. Dawn Staley in her post-game following Monday's 94-54 win over Grand Canyon, mentioning that she hopes she has a French player on her roster next year that she can take back home. We'll discuss that more with Michael Sauls from Go Gamecocks and the state. Of course, Shane Beamer announcing on Sunday the firing of Mike Shula. That comes after just 14 points, and kind of just like Alabama, you had a muffed punt, this time a 16-yard touchdown drive, and then you had a 54-yard bomb to Nick Harbor for a touchdown, and that was it. And Beamer visibly upset, disappointed with at the halftime interview in the 2-minute offense, which seems to always consist of the first play running up the middle. I wonder if Ole Miss knew that. Then in the third quarter, South Carolina burns an early timeout. I thought, poor game management by Beamer to burn the second timeout on a review of an obvious Ole Miss catch. And then the Gamecocks still were only down 23-14 and just meandered their way down the field, taking about over 6 minutes off the clock and not scoring. Let's go ahead and bring in the great Hale McGranahan from thebigspur.com. It's Movember, and Hale looks like he's got a little facial hair going there as well. Good morning, my friend. How are you? How have you been?
Doing well. Appreciate you having me on looks like Mr. White. Were you Walter White for Halloween? Is that what's going on, or are you doing the Movember deal?
It's Heisenberg. I am the danger.
I see that.
So
yeah.
I even have that hat. I am the danger, Charlotte.
Nice. Yeah. I'll be catching a shave here soon. We got some Christmas pictures coming up here in a few days.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So Hale, how was the Grove on Saturday?
It was interesting. I'd only been to Oxford one other time before this past Saturday. Was that 2018 game, the Mon Denson game, and that was an 11 a.m. kickoff. So we didn't really have time to walk around and check things out, but we did last week or this past Saturday and walk through the Grove, and it was pretty cool to check that off the bucket list and see a little bit more of that campus. It's a nice place. I could see why people want to go to school there. Seems pretty cool. And the game itself certainly was not the result anybody was looking for. It came from Columbia, unless you're of the belief that something needed to happen to get Mike Shula off the staff. So maybe that was a blessing in disguise, depending on how you want to look at it.
Well, certainly that was the case. We'll dive into that. First, I just want to get your thoughts on Vaught Hemingway Stadium, the press box, the spread for the media guys and gals. How did that compare to some of the other places in the SEC?
Yeah, it's a nice press box. I like their setup. It's not I'm trying to think. It's not huge, but it's they've got it situated and designed that works, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Food was good. They had some barbecue, pretty good barbecue, some good chicken tenders. Coleslaw, I'm not a huge coleslaw guy, but if I can look at a bowl of coleslaw and I don't see liquid forming piling up in there, I'm going to get it. And so it was a good coleslaw, some baked beans, some salad. It was a good spread. The stadium itself is, I experienced this the last time I was there, like in 2018, and just not the most intimidating SEC environment. So going into it, I thought it was conducive for Carolina to come out and maybe go get a win, because you weren't going to have to really contend with that stuff, and they didn't really have to. So, the stadium itself is, and the environment and all that stuff isn't and like what we're used to here in Columbia or in places like Knoxville or Auburn or Gainesville or wherever else. It's a little more rowdy. I mean, heck, the place, the building in Starkville is pretty difficult to deal with because of those cowbells. So Vaught Hemingway, while the folks seem very friendly and all that good stuff, it's not the most daunting challenge from an environment standpoint if you're a visitor.
All right, so totally off topic. Both of us being lifelong Braves fans, your thoughts on Walt Weiss being named manager? To me, it kind of reeks of Alex Anthopoulos not being able to get the guy he wanted. Otherwise, why wait over a month and get a guy off the staff? That was very disappointing to me.
Yeah, like you said, waiting that long. I guess the name that was out there was the Dodgers bench coach, Lehman, I believe his name. Yeah, so I guess I'd kind of been under the assumption for the last several weeks that he was going to end up being the guy. And, nothing against Walt Weiss, I guess. But, I don't know. It seemed like that Anthopoulos got turned down, if that's what happened with Weiss being named the guy the other day. So we'll see, man. They got They got to get some bullpen help and somebody to play Walt Weiss's old position, shortstop. I don't care who the manager is. We need to get that position figured the heck out, man, because Nick Allen certainly wasn't it. And the last few years leading up to him, obviously weren't the best either, especially just given how things went in that playoff series with the Phillies. So yeah, need to get a difference maker at shortstop.
I completely agree. You know, I really think the ghost of Bobby Cox got Toronto. I mean, they couldn't win when he was up there. They had a 3-2 lead in the World Series, coming back home for 2 games. Had a lead in the 9th inning, 3 outs away, and just squandered multiple opportunities to put that thing away in the evil empire, the Dodgers. I mean, I guess I'm happy for Freddie Freeman, but I mean, it just doesn't seem fair them being able to amass that many players because of the payroll and then deferring essentially all of Shohei Ohtani's $300 million salary.
I did not watch a single pitch of the World Series. I watched about 3 in every playoff game before that, 3 pitches. And that's because they were whatever game was on at a restaurant in New Orleans or outside of New Orleans when Biddle and Alex and I went and had dinner that Friday night. So whatever. I don't really have an opinion on any of that stuff other than I just want the Braves to be relevant again and hopefully beat the Dodgers in the playoffs at some point. That would be pretty sweet to do.
It would be. So I got to say, I really wish I hadn't watched a down of Gamecock football, particularly on offense this year. I mean, hell, it's been abysmal. I mean, if you look at the adjusted scoring offense, taking away those 6 non-offensive touchdowns, if you're just going on strictly scoring offense, 15 points a game. I mean, that's the worst offense since 1999 at South Carolina. You look at, even if you take into consideration all the points that have been scored, they're still dead last in the SEC at 19.7 points per game, 119 out of 136 teams in FBS. They're the only FBS team in the country not to amass at least 350 yards in a single game all season long. They're dead last in the SEC and 131st in total offense. They're dead last in rushing offense in the SEC and 128th nationally. Third down conversions, just 32.5%. That's good for 127 out of 136 in the nation. Sacks allowed, number 134 in the nation. And their best statistic offensively is turnovers, just 13, which is 13th in the SEC and 97th nationally. Not what I think anybody expected coming into this season, with Lenoris Sellers back, with your top 4 offensive tackles back, with Michael Smith expected to be the guy at tight end. He winds up being injured and hits the transfer portal. Nick Harbor improved. You have a young, talented group of wide receivers. But Mike Shula's offense is just slow, plodding, and predictable. And I want to get your take on just how he essentially decided to cage Lenoris Sellers and make him a prisoner in the pocket this season.
Yeah, I feel like a real dumbass for spending the whole offseason telling everyone who had that take after the bowl game that I didn't think that was what was going on. So, boy, was I wrong. Yeah, it was. The writing was definitely on the wall. So, hand up, I whiffed it when Shane named Shula the full-time guy. I don't think I wrote or said anything like, "Hey, this is going to get them to the next level." Like this is a team that's ready to go compete for the college football playoff again and get an SEC title game potentially because they got Mike Shula calling plays. I certainly didn't think that, but I thought it would be like going back to baseball, a good solid double. I didn't think it would be bad by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't think it would be an absolute home run, but I thought, you can keep the ship moving in the right direction and probably be okay. And it wasn't anywhere close to that. After that first drive in Atlanta against Virginia Tech, it's been an absolute nightmare, aside from maybe a couple opening drives here and there and maybe some deep balls to Nick Harbor. I guess there have been about 3 or 4 of them. So, yeah, it's been pretty god-awful. And one thing I did get right, and I don't want to pat myself on the back too much because it's just not the right thing to do, I guess, and there's still time for Rasul Faison to come out and be a difference maker these last 3 games this season. But I think one of the biggest issues, and this does kind of stem back to the bowl game, is that the running game outside of Lenoris, whether he's quote-unquote caged up in the pocket or not, there hasn't been a consistent backfield mate for him to be a threat running the ball consistently. Like I said, it hadn't been there. And I had that concern going into the season with Faison when most people were clamoring about him being this potential difference maker, an 1,100-yard rusher at Utah State and all that stuff. I just didn't see him as being a guy who was head and shoulders above what they had coming back with Oscar Attaway and Jordan Howell at 4, then Isaiah Augustov coming in at a later date. I didn't see a difference maker at that position, and clearly that affected Lenoris and the offense in the Citrus Bowl when Rocket Sanders sat out. And I probably should have maybe considered that a little bit more as I made my preseason prediction at 9-3, because I did have concerns about that and what it could mean for this offense as a whole. I didn't think it would affect it this much, and there's certainly more issues than just not a superstar running back. Like the offensive line has not been healthy, hasn't been good. Say what you want about the receiver position, tight ends. Obviously, there's been a regression for Lenoris in his play, but I think a significant part in that is just there's not a Rocket Sanders back there. There's not even Mario Anderson back there. I mean, that to me has been a part in all of this for sure.
I mean, I completely agree, but I also look at the style of offense and the designed runs, which about 95% of them are right up the middle. And to me, that does not really play to the strengths of Rasul Faison, who I think plays better in space. I mean, when he's having to make 4 guys miss just to get back to the line of scrimmage or a 1 or 2 yard gain, that's not ideal. And I just don't know. To me, there's a huge disconnect because Shane Beamer talks about the reasons why he hired Mike Shula, because of the continuity in what they were doing under Dow Loggins the last half of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But Hale, to me, it looks like Mike Shula threw out the whole playbook, and up until I think the Ole Miss game, I don't think Lenore Sellers has run a quarterback sweep or quarterback power outside all season long. It's been just quarterback draw up the middle. And I just don't see how Shane Beamer could be in the offensive meeting room every week and have been in the planning of spring practice and then coming out of spring practice and then every single week talking about how involved he is. And yet there was no continuity to me. There was not, after you got off the script, they would not come back to the plays that worked. And it just seemed like even the 2-minute offense, the first play is run up the middle every time. And I don't understand why Shane Beamer did not put his foot down or did not say, hey, where's all this stuff from last year that worked? We're just running the same plays over and over again, expecting a different result. Where's last year's offense?
Yeah, it's been frustrating to watch for sure. I mean, just like the RPO, lack of RPOs consistently, and some of the triple option type of stuff that we saw last year. That's the type of stuff that helps accentuate what Lenore Sellers does well, getting him moving, utilizing his legs, and having that as an actual threat. Kind of to your point about Faison and the way they've run him at times, there just hadn't always been situations where these guys are being put into a position to go do what they do best. It happens a little bit. Then, like you said, it seems like they kind of get away from it for a little bit and then go back to it when it's sort of predictable. And it's been a mess literally from the start at Citrus Bowl. And yeah, I mean, we could point at all sorts of different stuff, play calling certainly being one of them. Just the overall direction of the offense. Maybe one thing I should have started with earlier, Keith, was it never felt to me like they knew what they wanted to go do. It was like it was kind of a hodgepodge of like, hey, we want to try to do this and we want to try to do that, and we're just not quite sure about what's going to work or what suits us the best. I mean, you look at all the different receivers they have and sort of how that's cycled with guys going in and out of the lineup. They've just been trying to figure things out, and for whatever reason, they just haven't been able to identify a good, solid foundation of what this offense should be. And it probably just goes back to, like you said, when we got started talking about Lenore Sellers and being caged up as a runner by Mike Shula at bowl game and for much of this season. That's been an issue for sure. And I say a good running back has sort of held things back, but that they haven't really let Lenore just go be himself. And for whatever reason, I think that's just kind of compounded for him and taken away some of his confidence. And I don't know, maybe there's just too much drop back stuff in the passing game. I thought one of the most telling quotes Shane had about Shula, maybe going into the Alabama game or after the Alabama game, I guess it was, Shane said something about him telling Shula, if we're going to throw the ball 25 times, 20 of those 25 passes do not need to be dropbacks. So that to me was like, yeah, you know what? He probably should have made that demand a little bit earlier, because it was pretty clear in that Virginia Tech game that Shula wanted Lenore's dropping back more, and clearly it was not functioning very well. So I'm rambling. I don't know. It's just hard to make sense of all this because, like you said, nobody saw this coming. I mean, the coaches didn't see this coming. Like anybody who predicted Lenore Sellers being what he is to this point in the season is just that nobody was doing that. It just wasn't happening. Yeah, and people on the Big Spur message board getting mad at me and Tony and JC and Whittle for quote unquote hyping up the offense. Like, well, you watched South Carolina play football in the month of November last year. You saw what Lenore Sellers did. Like, he's damn good, and he hadn't been this year. So sorry, I'll stop talking. Your show.
I mean, I charted it in the preseason. The last 8 games of 2024, Lenore Sellers completed 70% of his passes for 16 touchdowns and just 4 interceptions. 70%, because he was out of the pocket. He was playing free. He was not caged or chained to the pocket. And all right, so Hale, here's the question fans have is why should we trust Shane Beamer to finally get it right on his 4th OC hire, technically 5th, and the best guy he hired never coached a game for him because he went to Auburn for a bigger contract. That didn't work out. But, you know, after Bobo left, it was a knee-jerk reaction, and we got Marcus Satterfield, who essentially ruined Spencer Rattler until the last 2 games of the season. Then he leaves. Dow Loggins comes in. You have no offensive tackles the first year, so you squandered the second year of Spencer Rattler by going 5-7. Then Lenore Sellers comes in and almost leads you to the college football playoff. If he doesn't have that 4th quarter fumble in Tuscaloosa or hits a 2-point pass play, you may have been in the college football playoff. And then Loggins leaves. Shula, who was on the sideline coaching Lenore Sellers all year long, he comes in. I don't know why he wasn't fired earlier, but now he's gone. Why should Shane Beamer be trusted? And does he deserve, if South Carolina goes 4-8, does he deserve a 6th year? And is he still making that hire? Because to me, that ought to be on the table, particularly if you lose at home to the worst Clemson team since 1999.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to answer that question as the answer that's going to actually be out there for everyone, because I wouldn't want to make that decision if I'm Jeremiah Donati. That's a tough one you'd have to make. And honestly, Keith, at this point, you almost got to wait and see how things take shape these next 3 weeks of the season before you should answer that question. Like, if you're Jeremiah Donati, if you have a team that goes out to College Station and gets pasted, which we've seen happen in College Station before, if they lose at home to Coastal Carolina, that'll probably that would probably seal the deal in my eyes. I mean, I've said as much on the message board that a change would have to be made if Carolina lost to Coastal. Then, you know, if they're 3-8 going into the Clemson game and lose to Clemson and finish 3-9, then yeah, I think it would be time to move on. So yeah, I want to see what happens these next 3 games before I feel comfortable answering that question. Honestly, I mean, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment too much, even though maybe sometimes it's probably a good idea. But this team went 9-3 last year and was on the brink of a college football playoff berth. You mentioned the Alabama game and what could have happened there. I mean, the LSU game, if Lenore doesn't get hurt in the first half, what happens in that game? Yeah, they went 5-7 the year before that, and they had some issues in 22. But they still played a great game against Tennessee that year, beat Clemson. They've beaten Clemson 2 out of the last 3 times. I mean, it's not all bad under Shane Beamer, like not even close. Maybe some of the offensive coordinator hires haven't been great. I say what you want about Dowell Loggins. Maybe it's relative to the other hires that have been made, but outside of that Old Dominion game to open the 24 season, I thought Dowell Loggins was pretty good for Carolina. And I'm not sitting here saying that he was great, because he wasn't, but there were some good things there. So there's something to feel relatively kind of confident about. If you want to try to be optimistic, is that I think that ended up being a good hire. Whatever people thought going into it, and that ESPN article, how that shaped everyone's opinion of the guy, and certainly couldn't do anything to change it for some people. I thought he did a pretty good job. You mentioned the offensive tackles in 23 and how much of an issue that was. Rattler still had a pretty good season. Xavier Legette, who could barely catch a pass for 4 or 5 years, however long it was, becomes a 1,000-yard receiver in the first-round draft pick. I mean, do the receivers on this current team have 1,000 yards between them? I mean, there's something to be said for a play caller who can get that going for a guy who barely did anything, and all of a sudden he's incredibly productive. I mean, then you look at what Lenoris did last year, and yeah, there were a lot of Superman moments things that he did on his own, but that was still an offensive coordinator who was putting the guy in position to go succeed. So that's me, to answer your question, as far as like what gives me some confidence that Shane can go out and get this one right is that. But I don't blame anyone for being skeptical.
All right, so Hale, what do you think legitimate timing is for this hire? Because National Signing Day is December the 3rd, which would be the Wednesday after the Clemson game.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a realistic timetable? I mean, obviously Shane Beamer has to get it right, but could there potentially be fallout, obviously, depending on what happens these next 3 weeks with this recruiting class? I know you've talked to several of the commitments, but, things are going to really ramp up here. LSU got their president and athletic director. I got to think Auburn is going to move quickly with their hire. What's a realistic timetable, and could there potentially be fallout in the recruiting class with a guy like a Landon Duckworth if, he does not know who the new offensive coordinator is going to be?
Potentially. I mean, everything I've heard is that folks are confident right now within Carolina. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of that might just depend on what those two places in particular, Auburn and LSU, what direction they go in and who they get and who that coach wants to bring in as a quarterback, and whether or not they are even interested in Landon Duckworth, for example. So a lot of variables obviously in play. But at the end of the day, as I reported yesterday on the Big Spurs, that from a recruiting standpoint, they've got who they've got in the class. I don't think there are going to be too many more additions from the high school level, and they're going to just kind of gear up for the portal and try to make the emphasis that, because assuming Shane Beamer's still the head coach next year, it will certainly be a prove-it year then, and they're going to need as many guys as possible who can come in and help them day one. So to answer your question about the recruiting standpoint, I think there could potentially be some fallout. We'll see. And when it comes to a realistic timeline to hire somebody, I can't imagine anything will be finalized before the end of the current season. Then it's a quick turnaround, like you said, from November 30th or whatever it is, that last Saturday of the season, and the following week with signing day coming up. So everybody, I guess if there's a positive in this thing, it's like everybody to a degree is going to be dealing with this thing. So, yeah, there are going to be a lot of guys trying to make decisions based on information that may not be as current or up to date as possible. So we shall see. That's kind of it makes it hard for me to answer because it's still relatively new as far as the signing day being this early in the month of December. Last year it was in this first week, but in years past it's been, like the week before Christmas. So it's hard to say for a lot of reasons.
So, Hale, I don't want to keep you past time, but have you got time for two more questions quickly?
Sure.
Awesome. So I'm not going to go through all the names, but you mentioned because of next year, obviously Shane Beamer, if he is back as head coach, he's going to be up against it. I mean, he's going to have to win. And so maybe you start shifting resources. I mean, you are still have been recruiting a number of other players. Obviously, they're probably cutting down on the guys that they're willing to, put the rev share and NIL money in. But who do you think are the guys, regardless that maybe are committed somewhere else or uncommitted, that they absolutely still would sign if they could convince them to sign with South Carolina?
I would imagine the defensive ends, Zion Ely, Julian Walker, if for no other reason they don't have any defensive ends committed at the high school level. Certainly not from the portal, obviously. And they're going to need some bodies just from a sheer number standpoint. They need help there. Brian Thomas being gone, and you're losing Demon Clowney out of the rotation. So yeah, there's going to be some need for guys there. Plus, it's not the easiest thing to go do in the portal and sign defensive ends. So I would think that those guys are going to be options, and unless that's changed here really recently. I think it would be smart for the staff to want to try to get through the finish line with either one of those guys, especially Ely. I mean, he's obviously the number one defensive end recruit in the country for a reason. That guy's awesome. And he is someone who I think could come in and help out immediately. Julian Walker, we'll see. He's a little more developmental in terms of being ready to play, but he'll also be a January enrollee. So he's got the size and the frame that he's going to have a chance from that standpoint. So, yeah, then if you're talking like Tamarian Watkins, who knows? I think they do like him, and they've been involved with him since he committed to A&M. Whether or not you need to prioritize another big safety, I think you could probably argue that either way for sure. Then who else is out there defensively? I mean, Franklin Whitley, the defensive tackle from Greenville High, who committed to Florida State yesterday, who kind of got the ball rolling on my reporting for this, certainly is certainly a developmental type of tackle. Probably not going to help whoever he ends up signing with in 2026, just because he just started playing football 10 months ago. Could be really good down the road, but probably not next fall. Plus, Carolina's already got 2 high school defensive tackles committed, and I think they feel pretty good about where they stand as far as signing both of them. Then beyond that, I mean, offensively, I would be surprised if they add another high school guy to this class in addition to who's already committed. So, and for obvious reasons there, right? They've been pretty bad on offense this season, and they don't have an offensive coordinator. So at this point on that side of the ball, I think it's just a matter of holding on to what you got and getting the rest from the portal. Then switching back over to defense, they haven't really been recruiting the linebacker position and cornerback. They're pretty set there, I think, as well. So, yeah, maybe some defensive ends if they can get them in the boat. So
maybe how about a running back? I mean, if you could get
they would like
or Carson.
Yeah, they would certainly like to, I think, for sure. But I'm also I mean, they've been trying with Carson Baker. Mickens is, a little more complicated, but I think that I know they've wanted to get 2 high school running backs in this class, but realistically, where we're at here on November the 5th, a month before the final day of the early signing period, that's probably not a realistic thought to me.
So before we get you out of here, what positions in the portal do you think South Carolina will focus on? I mean, if you had to just pick top 3.
Top 3. Well, quarterback is to be determined. So I'll just assume Lenore's is back and that they don't need to go get a guy who's going to compete for a starting spot, like legitimately compete for a starting spot. So let's put that to the side. Let's not count that. Running back for sure. I don't care if they get another high school guy or not. They need difference makers at that position. I think, again, like that to me is the spot where if we're just talking individual position to help Lenore Sellers, that's a big one. Maybe wide receiver, probably wide receiver, especially if there's one that's attainable, that's worth paying money for. I would say maybe that, but definitely running back on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, offensive line, if you can get them sort of like defensive end, they're hard to get good ones because the ones that are getting the top dollar are in high demand. So the supply is not very high either. Then on the defensive side of the ball, defensive end for sure. Whatever you can get from that standpoint, just go get them. I mean, you need them, and I guess it's going to help that George Wilson is theoretically coming back. Jalen Brown, who knows, theoretically coming back. So that would help, but still, I think defensive end is where they need to be heavily invested, and probably defensive tackle too. So I'll end there. Running back and the 2 defensive line positions are to me, if we're not talking quarterback, those are the top 3.
Awesome. Hale, I can't thank you enough for being on. The best in the business, hardest working man I know covering Gamecock football and recruiting. Be well, my friend, and silly season is about to be upon us. The portal entries, coaching rumors, the Gamecocks have at least 2 openings because you got to hire a tight ends coach and a coordinator at least. And depending on who that is, they may want to bring some of their guys with them. So a lot of probably a lot of long days coming up for you. So hydrate and carb load, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Keith, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me come on here and ramble with you. Sorry if I dodged questions and didn't make a lot of sense. It's just it's been a weird time. I thought the moving on from Shula would be some maybe a little bit of closure, I guess, but it's for me it's only muddied the waters even more, which I guess I should have seen that coming too.
And well, as Steve Spurrier would say, well, we're just a sad bunch of Gamecocks, Todd.
Head ball.
Be well.
All right.
We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the family.
Same to you and yours, Keith. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. That was Hale McGranahan. And before Michael Sauls from Go Gamecocks in the State joins us, let me tell you, today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. So I play Prize Picks almost every week. I've been riding Josh Allen. I've been riding Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. This week, my Prize Picks of the week are Rico Dowdle, going with a little former Gamecock action here. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is pick 2 or more players and simply pick more or less. And so for me, Rico Dowdle, more than 75.5 yards rushing. They're playing the Saints, who are basically the worst team in professional football. So I like that. I like Josh Allen, more than 229.5 passing yards at Miami on Sunday, even though the Bills could be a little flat coming off of that big win over the Chiefs. I like Christian McCaffrey on Sunday, more than 49.5 yards receiving. He's been one of their favorite targets with check down Charlie. So I like that. And then kind of a, not really a freebie, but I like Brock Bowers for more than 1/2 of a rushing or receiving touchdown, as he is the Las Vegas Raiders' best player. So with Prize Picks, it's simple. Just pick more or less with at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. A couple of new things with Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You could pick rushing yards, passing yards, touchdowns, more or less, meaning you can pick the same player 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is also the only app where you can directly copy your lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or someone whose picks you like, you can hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is also the master of the flex play, where even if one of your players, maybe they get injured or they don't go over, or maybe you picked under and they go over, with Prize Picks you can still win with the flex play, even if one of your picks misses. Prize Picks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are safe, secure, and fast in little as 15 minutes. With Prize Picks, you can also use Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. So join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy app, Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and enter code Gamecocks to get $50 in lineups after you make your first $5 play. That's code Gamecocks to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. All right, we will be joined by Michael Sauls, I think, in just a couple minutes. I need to check my email here. Let's hang on and I'll be back right after this outdated commercial message.
If you enjoy listening and watching the Free Wednesday show, now live streaming on YouTube, and would love more Gamecock Pod daily, join our growing Gamecock family by becoming a monthly or annual subscriber. You'll be able to listen to the show every day of the week and listen to guests like J.C. Sherbert, Hale McGranahan, and John Whittle from thebigspur.com, Colin Taylor and Mike Uva from Gamecock Central, Emily Adams from the Greenville News, Ben Portnoy, Michael Lanana, and Jeremiah Holloway from GoGamecocks.com, Michael W. Bratton, the host of That SEC podcast, and many, many more. As a VIP subscriber, you can join or listen to the weekly live Zoom call with up to 100 of your favorite Gamecocks and friends. After the show is an unrecorded overtime segment where the real scoop gets dropped and discussed. It's like going down to your local pub or sports bar and having a conversation with your Gamecock friends about last week's football game, men's and women's basketball games, and Gamecock baseball. And of course, there's always recruiting to discuss. In addition to the weekly Zoom call, VIP subscribers get the most popular podcast, The Morning After, which is released every Sunday morning during football season, and more VIP perks are in the works. Follow Keith on Twitter @KAllset, or follow the show on Twitter @GamecockPod. Go to the top of the homepage and follow the link. If all else fails, go to patreon.com/GamecockPodDaily. Join now and get up to 3 months free off an annual VIP subscription. You will love it, guaranteed. Now, back to Gamecock Pod Live.
All right, so I'm back. So while we wait on Michael, or if Michael joins us or he does not, I can tell you who it's not going to be as the next, there he is, offensive coordinator at South Carolina. Okay, it's not going to be Will Stein from Oregon. It's not going to be Gus Malzahn, and it most certainly is not going to be the head coach at North Texas. He is not leaving North Texas to take the South Carolina job. And thankfully, I don't have to talk much longer because we're going to bring Michael Sauls, who's also a Braves fan.
Hello. Apologies for the 9-minute delay. I was in a meeting that I could not get out of.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure sometimes the link doesn't go through, or I just bust and even forget to send it. So it's all good. So as a Braves fan, your thoughts on waiting a month until after the World Series and then hiring Walt Weiss?
Yeah. I had seen some I don't know if it was legitimate reporting or if it was just somewhere on Twitter that they were waiting to hire the Dodgers bench coach or something, and that's why they were waiting. And at the end of the day, I'm not entirely surprised that they just decided to promote from within. That's a very Atlanta Braves thing to do. I would have liked if they had like gone and made a splash, whether that be go get David Ross or like go get DeRosa or something like that. But, you know, those are the powers that be decided to go with Walt, and I'm not upset about the hire. I think there is a certain a pro to keeping a guy who's been on the bench for a while in the clubhouse. I think they need to bring Wash back if possible, even if it's just like in some sort of part-time role. I think they need to get him back in the clubhouse, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I hope we, if we're not going to make a splash in the managerial hire, I hope we do something in free agency, but knowing the Atlanta Braves, probably won't do that either.
Well, you definitely need bullpen help, probably need a starter, and it would be good if they could re-sign the guy that finished the year for them at shortstop, or just any shortstop that could actually field and hit somewhere above the Mendoza line.
You need somebody that isn't just a body at shortstop, correct? Don't get me wrong. Love Nick Allen. Thanks for your service, Nick Allen. But I really liked what Hassan Kim did at the end of the year for us. But no, you need someone who is more than just taking up space at short.
All right. So, Michael, before we get into women's basketball, what's your take on Shane Beamer firing Mike Shula, and why did it take this long? And why was there such a disconnect when Beamer lauded the continuity of and the comfort level with Lenore Sellers, when to me it looks like Mike Shula just took Dow Loggins' playbook and threw it in the trash. And he kind of was who he said he was. Like, even at the introductory press conference, well, you know, Lenoris really needs to stay in the pocket more. I mean, it's like he forgot that he coached Cam Newton and Josh Allen, because those guys, just like Lenore Sellers, made a ton of plays. And then the most important job of a head coach is to coach your coaches. And if you're Shane Beamer and you were really in every offensive staff meeting and every quarterback meeting, why in the hell did it take you until November to get rid of this guy when you could have just said, hey, where's last year's playbook? Why are we chaining Lenoris in the pocket? Why are we not getting him out of the pocket more? Why don't we ever come back to the plays that are on the script? And if you were so disappointed in the 2-minute offense at Ole Miss, why didn't you tell Mike Shula, hey, we got a minute and a half, we got 3 timeouts, let's try to go get points here. Let's spread it, let's go tempo. Let's get going, because we got a chance to put points on the board to end the half and then start the third quarter and go down and get points and either tie this thing up or take the lead. And instead, you wait until 17 seconds to call a timeout when Ole Miss has the football, which I really didn't understand, because I still remember when Lane Kiffin was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Mm-hmm. I remember Nick Saban chewing his ass out on the sidelines and standing right next to him most of the whole time they were on offense, making sure he did what he wanted him to do. And it's like Shane Beamer expected all of this stuff. At least he says he was in those meetings and he expected the continuity. But every single week, it was the same damn thing, and it was the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And then you wait until the 11th week of the season to do something about it after you're 3-6. And Lenoris Sellers doesn't even look like the same player he was last year.
I think it was the right call to fire him. I think timing wise, it's one of those things where like I get you want to put together a body of work and like, give it time to see if something can get going on offense. But I think in terms of timing, if there was a time to do it, now was probably the best time. You go into the bye week, you've got time to figure out what's going to happen in terms of who's calling plays, how you're going to, adjust to it. I don't know. I mean, sometimes hires don't work out. I mean, that this happens across every sport at every level. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I don't know if it was an X's and O's thing or what, but clearly South Carolina's offense was just not doing well. I think part of it probably had to do with injuries on the offensive line, but even as the offensive line got healthier and showed improvement, albeit not crazy amounts of improvement, but improvement in these last couple of weeks, and they still weren't able to do anything. So, I think it's like one of those hindsight being 2020 type of situations. Maybe you go back when you hired them and you maybe open that search up a little bit more to see if there's anyone else, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. I think you're going to need to make not necessarily a splash, but you're going to need to get this next one right. Whether that be go convince a G5 head coach to come be a coordinator, go find a coordinator who, has had proven success in the last like 2 seasons, not just in the last decade, but like has had recent proven success. I do think, and Beamer talked about it a little bit. He said, this is an attractive job. And part of me thinks, all right, well, it's as of right now, this is a middling SEC program. Like you're going to be in a constant uphill battle against these other schools in the SEC. But like, I mean, I feel like a lot of potential offense coordinator candidates are going to want the chance to coach Lenora Sellers. Granted, you need Lenora Sellers to come back.
That would have certainly been the case last year.
Yeah, exactly.
You could have. There would have been guys that would have been busting each other in the mouth and clawing over each other to get to Columbia to coach.
Yeah, so I think that'll be a pro. I'm sure people still feel that way to an extent. I mean, yes, Lenoris has kind of looked like a shell of himself compared to what he did last year, but I think that's still valid to an extent. And also, I just feel like some of the portal additions maybe didn't hit as hard as they thought would happen. I know, even though Rasul Faison has like provided serviceable playing time, but he hasn't done a whole bunch. And I think he was a highly touted running back coming in. So I think you've got to hit on a lot of different variables in this offseason. And I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So this is also a very attractive head coaching position. And I still think the jury is out because, I mean, look, I do expect the offense to look better because I trust Mike Furry and Sean Elliott a hell of a lot more than Mike Shula. But you're 3-6. You're certainly headed for your second losing season in 3 years because Texas A&M's number 3 in the country. They are playing for the SEC championship and the college football playoff, and they are going to be laser focused. And I mean, they are laying the wood, and you got to go to College Station. So for me, Shane Beamer needs to win both of the last 2 games. You need to win, obviously, the Coastal Carolina game. But to me, you cannot lose to the worst Clemson team of this century at home at Williams-Brice Stadium and then in your entire tenure never beaten Clemson at home. I mean, 4-8 and a bad home loss to Clemson. And look, people can talk about, obviously Penn State is a better job than South Carolina. LSU is a better job than South Carolina. Florida with all their resources, even though only 2 guys have ever won big there in the history of Florida football, it's perceived to be a better job. But is Auburn a better job than South Carolina? Is Arkansas a better job when their athletic director said, we don't have the resources to compete for the SEC championship and the college football playoff? Auburn's had 4 head coaches in the last 7 years, and it's clear their administration does not run that university. The boosters do. And if you win 8 games in Gainesville, Florida, or Auburn, Alabama for more than 2 straight years, you're getting fired. And at Columbia, if you win 8 games a year for more than 4 or 5 years, you're probably getting a statue in front of the stadium. And now you actually have a 21st century real athletic director that's not a former baseball coach, who's proven he knows how to run a major athletic program. I mean, for me, 4-8's not cutting it.
Yeah.
Certainly 3-9. I think if you lose to A&M and then you lose to Coastal, I just think you go ahead and hit the reset button. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's time to hit a reset button yet. I think they'll probably lose to A&M. I think that's a safe bet. But granted, Shane Beamer is known to get a win that no one expects him to get. So after the last couple of weeks, this would be the time that they'd go to A&M and find a way to win. I think they'll beat Coastal no matter how good or bad Carolina or Clemson are respectively every year. That game was a 50-50. I was sitting there I would hate to be a fan in the stadiums for either of those teams in the Carolina Clemson game coming in and both teams trying to be like they need a win to make a bowl. I would hate that. That would be terrible. Like it'd be nerve-wracking and everything. I don't think you need to worry about hitting the reset button yet. I do think that if they only walk out of this season with one more win against Coastal, they lose against A&M and Clemson, then the seat gets hotter, certainly. But I think that 9-win season, I mean, it's one of those things where I vaguely remember talking about Shane Beamer being on the hot seat entering last season, and then they go on this near playoff run. And I remember asking people, I was like, do you think South Carolina has turned a corner? And I remember talking to national people, and I'm going yeah, I think this is South Carolina turning the corner. So I think this season is definitely a disappointment, but I think you got to give them a chance to see what this new offense coordinator can do, whoever it may be. And then I think next year, if you have another disappointing season, that's when we can start having the conversation of, all right, is it time to reset the football program? But I don't know, maybe I'm just I'd be a bad AD or a good one, depending on who you ask. I'm slow to action in that regard. I don't think it's time to hit the reset button.
Well, I mean, that is a valid point. And, but at the same time, a lot of athletic directors, when they see an opportunity to get their guy in there, they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And, so I was having a conversation with one of my best friends, and so we were debating it. And, I'm still want to let these last 3 games play out, because if Shane Beamer beats Clemson, even with 5-7, let's face it, 3 wins in the last 4 years against Clemson, even though these have not been Dabo Swinney's best teams. Will Muschamp had that dubious honor of facing Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence and all of those guys. That would really, I think, make it more palatable for South Carolina to swallow a 5-7 season.
Yeah, beating Clemson goes a long way.
It does. But next year, there are going to be 3 to 6 jobs that are going to come open that are going to be better than South Carolina. And this year, they're going to be up to 30 jobs because you're going to have guys leaving jobs. You got guys that are already out of jobs. Guys are going to be leaving jobs to go to those jobs, meaning those schools are going to hire guys. And so you wait another year and there's more movement ahead of you. And not only are you losing out on all the guys you could have hired this year, you're going to lose out on those 3 or 4 up and coming coaches that get hired next year, or that hot 2 or 3 coordinators in those 5 or 6 jobs that end up getting hired. And so, you know, without much progress, you're just going to be really losing out on a number of qualified coaches and putting yourself even further behind if, you know, there's not enough progress to be able to, you know, swallow that turd sandwich of a season. So, I mean, that's both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to deal with that in every coaching search every year. I don't know. I don't see him making any. I feel like this year would kind of be a rash decision to start looking for a new head coach. But I don't know. Talk to me this time next year, and we'll see how it's going.
All right, so let's turn the page and talk about a program where you don't have to worry about a coaching change or somebody that doesn't know how to coach their coaches or get their players to perform at a high level, and that is the flagship program at the University of South Carolina, Dawn Staley and the women's basketball program. So they only have 10 players this year, 4 newcomers, and as Dawn Staley said, you know, really 7 players that have not played, you know, at all or very much for the Gamecocks. So you had 2 exhibition games, you know, Anderson, and then the game in Atlanta against North Carolina where they had a 20-point lead and just said, well, let's just
take the foot off,
get loose and turn the ball over and make it close. So you had those games. Compare and contrast that to the season opener, and what did you like about the season opener versus the exhibition games?
Let's see. Well, I think Tanaya Latchman looked a lot more comfortable against Grand Canyon, as evidenced by the 20-point performance she had. I think I don't know if it was just because it was a step up in competition or she got in foul trouble, but I think Medina Okote, you need her to stay out of foul trouble. And it's because, like Dawn straight up said, like she can guard and she can guard a guard if needed. She's just got to, you know, work on little things, and other teams are going to attack her and try to put her in foul trouble all year. Like that's going to be something that South Carolina's going to have to deal with the entire season. Yeah, I mean, I thought they looked good against Grand Canyon. I really like Agat McKeer. I think she has – it was one of those during the Anderson exhibition where I'm, you know, writing up the final details of the story, and I look up and she has 16 points. So I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from? So I like what she brings. I also liked what, you know, Isla McDowell was doing against Grand Canyon when they had to go to that 4-guard lineup after you know, they were dealing with some foul trouble throughout the game and kind of had to get flexible with that. I think they look good. I mean, anytime you put up almost 100 points in your season opener against a former assistant, and yeah, I think it's early, but I think they look good. I think the 3-point shooting in the first half of Grand Canyon was huge. I looked it up. I mean, they had 9 in the first half and ended with 9 in the game, but last year they only made 10 or more threes as a team 5 times. And twice, 3 times in non-conference, or like twice in non-conference. Like, yeah, that's 13 games and you only hit 10 threes twice. So the fact that you were able to come out swinging, hit 9 in the first half of the season opener is big. So I think the guards are going to be important in the season, but I also agree with what Don said that, they need a dominant big and they need Medina to be that dominant big. And a lot of the success that they have this season is going to hinge on how well she plays.
So that was my first chance to see her in a South Carolina uniform, was in that season opener. And she really does have a nice touch. I guess in the Garnet Madness, they had, she was shooting threes in the 3-point competition. She shoots the ball really well, but there was one play against Grand Canyon where she had a player sealed and they swung the ball back to the top. She had the player sealed on her hip and they fired a pass in there and she caught it with one hand and put the ball up and in. And I coached basketball for a long time, and with bigs, the most important quality, other than being able to shoot free throws because they're going to get fouled, is catching the ball. If you have good hands and you can catch the ball, that's really a big indicator on talent, ability, and scoring ability. And for her to be able to make that difficult catch, knowing the defender is right on her hip, and then to gather and just go up slowly. I really think with her athleticism, her ability to run the floor, and her body type, she does have the potential to be a dominant factor all season long. I'll be interested to see. I think, there's going to be an adjustment period because she, barely played 17 to 20 minutes per game and still averaged a double-double in SEC play at Mississippi State. But with the emphasis of the offense for Dawn Staley having always revolved around playing inside out, I think by the time SEC play rolls around, she could be, a 15 or 16 and 10 type of player. And that's just going to mean a lot more open shots for Raven Johnson, who tied her career high with 3 made 3-pointers and was 3 for 5 during the game. Tanaya Latson, Tessa Johnson, and then Agot McKeer and Isla McDowell, were both really good 3-point shooters in high school. Joyce Edwards has extended her game. We know Miriam Dowda can shoot threes. Maddie McDaniel is more of a penetrator and facilitator. But that's 9 players right there. And I hadn't even mentioned Adele Tack, who her footwork still needs to improve. The game needs to slow down for her. But, I think South Carolina comfortably has a 9-player rotation for this season.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things where, last year we talked so much about how good the bench was and how you could take out a starting 5 and put the bench unit in and there'd be no drop off. I think, this year, at least through one very small sample size of a game, I think all 10 of those players can play and make an impact. It just kind of depends on when you need them and where. With Medina, I remember, I think it was the Anderson exhibition, seeing her run the length of the court in transition was crazy. I was like, oh God, she's 6'6", but she's a fast 6'6". So, and Donna said, you've seen flashes of dominance from her. You just need to work at it and maintain it. I will say watching Raven shoot those threes against Grand Canyon, I feel like was a good sign. Like she looked so comfortable. I think she shot, I think it was 6 total threes maybe or something. I know she made 3 and that was tied her career high, but I mean, she looked so comfortable shooting that. And I know that was a big point of emphasis for her this offseason, was to improve on offense after the season that she had last year. So I think the fact that if you can make it to where you can take some attention off of the leading scorer from last year and the 3-point threat in Tessa Johnson, if you can take some attention off of them by going, hey, Raven can shoot the ball too, that just opens up opens up Pandora's box for this South Carolina offense. And we're 1 game in, but it's looking good.
So I really think the addition of Latson and the familiarity, right? They were high school running mates. They won state championships together. And Raven even talked about how they just naturally push each other, how they have that natural connection and that vibe. And that, Tanaya has pushed Raven to improve her shooting. And she, is shooting with more confidence. And it's also, to me, this is Tessa Johnson's year. Like her junior and senior year, she's not coming off the bench now. And she's just so silky smooth in the mid-range, pulling up off the dribble. And when she's hitting her threes, she was a 40% three-point shooter last year. If we're talking about that again this year with the ability to score from all 3 levels with Raven, Tanaya, and Tessa Johnson in that starting lineup, and Joyce Edwards as well. You have 2 preseason USA Today All-Americans in Tanaya Latson and Joyce Edwards. And they may only have 10 players, but they're all going to have to play. I mean, this is a deep and talented team, but, they're certainly going to have tests to get them ready for SEC play. Starting with Clemson next week. Actually, I guess a week from last night, November the 11th. Then that Thursday or Friday the 15th in LA on Fox, the real SC game against Southern Cal. Then in Las Vegas, you're going to have Duke and either UCLA or Texas. And then you're going to go to Louisville the first Thursday in December the 4th, and take on Louisville. And, then there are a number of winnable games, but still some P4 games, Penn State, South Florida, Providence. You got North Carolina Central sprinkled in there. Florida Gulf Coast as well before you get into SEC play. But there are going to be a number of tests for this team, which I think is a good thing when you have so many new and inexperienced players to get them ready for SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Clemson game will be kind of the first, all right, let's figure out what we got from a bench standpoint. I think we know how the starters will play against Clemson. That program has not been historically great since Don's been here, but I do think Clemson has a lot of positive momentum right now in that women's basketball program. And I think in a couple of years that could be, if not this year, a tournament team. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the bench kind of reacts to that game. And then, like you said, I mean, you're playing Southern Cal, then come home for a couple cupcake games against Winthrop and Queens, and then it's bang. I mean, you're playing 2 potential Final Four teams in Vegas. So yeah, they're going to be tested. But that's nothing new with the way that Dawn schedules, and it's obviously intentional. I mean, you want to test them for the gauntlet that is SEC play, and yeah, I think this like next stretch, really, this next like month, these next couple of weeks will be big in helping us kind of decipher what this team is about and what they can do.
No doubt. So speaking of scheduling, South Carolina back in Paris, November the 2nd against Brenna Freeze and Maryland, a familiar opponent and a national championship coach. And Dawn Staley says she hopes she has a French player on the roster that she can take back home. Michael, what do you know about that?
I have a couple hunches on who this mystery French player is. I admittedly, like, I know that she was in Paris. I know that Dawn was there and like recruiting. I saw the picture of the player of the A1s and everything. And I've looked up, because, it's so hard to find international prospects because ESPN and On3 and 247 don't rank them for whatever reason. What was the Australian prospect that committed to Southern Cal the other day? Satya Fagan.
Fagan.
Yeah. So apparently South Carolina, like, she announced in August that South Carolina was in her top 3. I had no idea that even happened. Like, it's so hard to find these recruits from like a accessibility standpoint, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But I have a couple hunches on who it might be, and then it's just strictly like, I think it might be one of these 3 players, but I initially thought, oh my God, it's Victor Wembanyama's sister, and I was like, oh my God, Wembanyama, there's gonna be a baby Wemby playing at Carolina.
Wemby.
And then I looked up Wemby's sister, and she is fully my age, and I'm like, all right, well, I don't think she has college eligibility left. So yeah, no, I don't have any. I'm not going to give you names just because it's strictly speculation, and I don't want it to be complete. I don't want it to bite me in the butt just how wrong it is. But I've, through some limited internet research, have found a pool of people that I think it could be, and I guess we're all just going to have to find out together until whoever the recruit is or someone can figure it out and publish it first.
All right, so I've uncovered one name that I think there's a little juice behind, and that I don't even know how to pronounce the last name. So
that's another thing. I don't know how to say the names.
Yeah, so Alicia Terbazay.
Yes, I'll give you that. That was one of the 3 that I came up with.
6'4",
yeah,
a two-handed dunker, a 3-point shooter, ball handler, can score from all 3 levels. I mean, in that regard, almost a mirror of Satya Fagan from Australia. Same type of player. Super athletic, very skilled. I mean, I'm hoping that's who it is, and she signs with South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina has one commitment, that being Kelsey Andrews, 6'4", post player from IMG. Unfortunately, she's battled a history of knee problems, but she has Team USA experience. Her coach at IMG said, in his opinion, and he's seen them all, she's the best post player in the class of 2026. South Carolina is, I think, on the verge of the last frontier in landing California high school players straight out of high school. They're involved with the number 3 player in Rivals, number 5 ESPN, Jersey Robinson, a 6'1" point guard. And she brought Kaylee Wynn, a 6'2" wing player, also from California, with her on her official visit. Yeah. Spoiler alert, there's a rumor going around they may have filmed a commitment video on that visit. But she's considering Stanford, Jersey Robinson, it looks like down to South Carolina and LSU, but Kim Mulkey's so heartbroken that the only athletic director she ever trusted got fired at LSU, and now there's talk that all her NIL money's going to football. Plus, if you look at all the open roster spots and the amount of playing time, South Carolina really makes sense for these players because there's just really not that many players returning.
Yeah.
And then last weekend, Fope Ayo, a 6'5" lefty who's a native of Nigeria, plays at Austin Academy in Massachusetts. She visited South Carolina. She was at a camp. There's a YouTube video of that. She's visited Stanford, Miami, and Michigan along with South Carolina. And so the Gamecocks seem to be poised potentially for a big close to this recruiting class, Michael.
Yeah, I think I was talking with some other reporters. The potential combination of, Kelsey Andrews, Jersey Robinson, and Kaylee Wynn, I mean, that's pretty damn good class. That's someone who can run guard alongside Maddie McDaniel, whether you need him to be a point guard or off ball. And then you have a kind of a big guard wing, however you want to describe Kaylee Wynn. And then you have a potential forward of the future in Kelsey Andrews. I think those three alone would be good. Obviously, you'd love to bring in whoever the French prospect is, but if it's one of those where we're still in the stages of if, but like if they get one of those three, I still think it's a win. And obviously, if you can get both Kaylee Wynn and Jersey Robinson to commit, that's immediately a top 5 class, if not top 3, depending on how the rest of it shakes out. But no, it's one of those where you're sitting there and you're seeing these people who came on official visits, and it was like there was like a week or two where there were so many people who took an OV to South Carolina, and they all committed to different schools, like other than South Carolina. It was like a week or two. It was like, oh, I'm announcing my commitment, not South Carolina. And so for a week or two, I was like, dang, like, is this just like parodying college basketball and it's a more level playing field now? Or I'm just like, wow, this is crazy to kind of see. I mean, granted, Don Staley cannot have all of these players because there's just not enough roster spots. But it's one of those where you kind of expected, okay, maybe 1 or 2 of those would come to South Carolina. And then now you've got the potential to have Jersey Robinson and Kaylee Wynn. So it's like one of those where it's like, all right, it's a reminder that patience is required in recruiting. And that even though you might have 10 of the top 15 come take OVs, you can't take all of them, and not all of them are going to come to South Carolina. So I think it'll be interesting as we kind of close down recruiting here in the coming months to see how this class shapes up. Obviously, a whole lot of really good basketball players that are available, and 2 in particular that would be massive additions to South Carolina. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, and if they got, we'll just call her Alicia, 6'4" Alicia from France.
Mm-hmm.
That would, I think that a lot of opponents should be very, very afraid of
that would be
South
big.
Carolina if they reload with that kind of class. And then Dawn Staley, she even said, hey, we don't burn any bridges because the portal's always open, and it's expected that this freshman class and the incoming freshman class, there will be more transfers because of the over-promising of NIL and rev share money and the under-delivering. If you kind of listen to some of the women's basketball recruiting pundits, there's a lot of over-promising going on right now.
They're always cheaper the second time around.
That's what Dawn says. So, Michael, we'll wrap it with that. Appreciate you coming on as always. Great stuff. Be well. If we don't catch up with you. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Enjoy the bye week and just focusing on women's basketball. And we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
All right,
Thanks
Keith. Thank you
again
very
so
much. Have a grand old day.
All right. That was Michael Sauls from Go Gamecocks in the State, and that will be a wrap for me. We'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Obviously, a lot of discussion will center around who will be the next offensive coordinator at South Carolina. What's the timeline? Can Shane Beamer get it right? Can he be trusted to get it right? Will he even be back as head coach next year? Can South Carolina end the season with wins over in-state wins at home over Coastal and Clemson? A lot of cans and ifs are out there, just like, next week we'll find out. Women's basketball national signing period begins 1 week from today. It lasts for a week. Then December the 3rd, you'll have the football 48-hour, or I guess Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so 3-day national signing period, the early national signing day for college football. We'll be chopping it up, talking about all of it right here on Gamecock Pod Live and every day on Gamecock Pod Daily, including the Garnet and Black Town Hall every Tuesday night, which is a live interactive Zoom call that lasts for 50 minutes to an hour. And then we have an unrecorded overtime, and there was some names and some major scoopage dropped in overtime, as is usually the case. So until next week, Keith Alsep saying appreciate everybody that tuned in live on YouTube, everybody that will listen for free wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, etc. And everybody have a great week and enjoy a stress-free weekend of college football. At least we don't have to watch Mike Shula stand over there and look like Alan in The Hangover. So until next week, I am out of here. God bless, and go Gamecocks, and have a great rest of the week, everybody.